This is the world's second most tranquil country, only south of New Pacific Sea, around 4,000 kilometers from Australia. A large portion of individuals living in India and Pakistan, similar to me, know Nuco simply because of cricket. Brendan McCullum, Ross Taylor, Daniel Vittori, I know. Nuco due to these, I realize that it is exceptionally popular in the New World, particularly as a result of its gigantic mountain range, this delightful extravagance and top-notch natural food. Presently, a portion of individuals could definitely realize that the well-known film Ruler of D, The Shooting of Rings was likewise finished by him. The climate of New was found in a delightful video. The climate of New is precisely similar to that of the UK. It has hockey-like intensity, long winters, and a ton of downpour, however. Regardless of this, the number of inhabitants in New isn't so much as 1/7% of the number of inhabitants in the UK. Assuming you see this guide of New, you will see that around 80% New is totally vacant, and there is nobody there rahat, 70% of the number of inhabitants in New lives here in the north, and half of the number of inhabitants in the north additionally lives in this one city, Auckland. Such huge climate, lovely view, individuals, variety, rate, and exclusive expectation of living, in spite of 80%. Today we know the response to this question, for what reason is the New unfilled? In all actuality, in this video, the most, as a matter of some importance, assuming we take a gander at the World Guide, you will see that New Zealand is exceptionally distant from the remainder of the world, meaning assuming you load onto a plane from Karachi or Mumbai, it will take around 18 to 22 hours of trip. Subsequent to crossing the whole Bedouin Ocean and the Indian Sea, you can arrive at New, and presently the inquiry emerges that how might people arrive at this Ireland so distant from the world? Presently, there are numerous perspectives here. In the event that we go to the authority site of New, it is composed there that a long time back, around 1320, somewhere in the range of 1350 and 1350, the Maori public found this multitude of islands of the New Pacific Sea, which were they are additionally called fertilization islands. Individuals living on them were called Maurishivi. As per official sources, they left the entirety of their islands around Sari in huge boats and arrived at New Zealand. This is practically similar period when Mongols and Change. Khan was assuming command of the entire of Asia. Yet presently the inquiry emerges that for what reason did these individuals pass on their old islands and come to the enhanced one? At the point when we explored to figure out this inquiry, we came to be aware from certain articles that in Maori's own verifiable records, as per a slight contrast, New Zealand is 13th. In Surrey, as well as even 500 years before that, in around 758 promotion, a Maori named Coop had found it. Coop was an angler who used to get fish for him as well as his boat. However, at that point it began happening that at whatever point he established beats, the fishes, in the space would go to the living octopus, and these individuals wouldn't get anything. Presently, on the grounds that the fish was the food wellspring of these individuals, it began, making a ton of issues, and its condition was settled by Cafe and a portion of his companions. We will go to the ocean and attempt to find another Ireland where there is a decent inventory of food and drink. Looking for this, Coop took 20 to 25 men with him and set off into the Pacific Sea. Following a couple of long periods of movement, he saw an Ireland with immense mountains. This was New. Ireland was wealthy in fish, goats, and organic products, yet no other person. This bistro was not an individual, and it was an ideal spot for his clan. Novel. Send a couple of your companions back to the Lawmaker Islands with the goal that they can illuminate the rest. About this Ireland, and in this manner the Maori public began choosing New. By the 17th 100 years, the Maori public lived easily on New. He lived in India, and on the grounds that he was away from the world, he neither had any hatred with anybody, nor there was no risk from anybody, however this planned to consume very soon. This was the point at which the Western countries were bombing all around the world to expand their power. Travelers were being shipped off find Ireland, nations and mainlands, which the Europeans could catch by catching them. To empower nations to build their power, a duck, wayfarer-capable Tasma, set out looking for a landmass in the south of the Pacific Sea, in light of the fact that around then the Europeans felt that there would be a mainland in this part, and in the event that it works out, it will be exceptionally risky for the European nations. Ocean will open entryways of chances in 1642. Tasman found New A, yet when he attempted to land there, he had a ridiculous battle with the Maori public and had to drive them away. Then, at that point, in 1769, an English official, James Cook, while looking for this landmass, arrived at New Anne and by visited James K. There was a furious fight between the warriors and the Maori public, and numerous Mauritians were likewise killed in it. James needed to return. Yet this time he made a new and point-by-point guide of the whole excursion, and through this guide, the Europeans began arriving at Ireland in the 18th 100 years, and this time he managed the Maori nation in an exceptionally brilliant way. Bargain. By attracting them with exchange and benefit, the English began building their level ports there, and afterwards, solely after 100 years, the English assumed total command over New. In 1840, a détente was endorsed between the English and the Maori public, which was cancelled DT Tint Dangi. What's more, after this, the new authority record of Europe and the English umpire was framed. Around then, the number of inhabitants in Maori individuals was around 2 lakhs. However, in the following 100 years, during the time of expansion in populace, it descended from 2 lakhs to 4,000, and in 2 years when the Europeans came here in the area, those sicknesses likewise came here with them. The issue, which was normal in Europe around then, was that the Maori public had not created resistance to these illnesses, and for that reason, after the European movement, the neighborhood moms began biting the dust in the wake of getting tainted. Besides, in the 19th 100 years, a really violet spot had become New, just a brief time after the settlement of Whanganui. A progression of wars began between the English and nearby Maoris over land proprietorship, which went on for the following 40 years. In these conflicts, numerous nearby Maoris were killed. Lastly, this series finished in 1881. Jakar Rock, when every one of the large chips of Maori had been killed, and the Maori development was gravely debilitated. Presently, the English had additionally perceived that without remembering the nearby score for the advancement cycle, progress can't be made, and for that reason, following these sections, the English government made local people the right holders in each improvement project from the discretionary cycle. What's more, accordingly, the excursion of harmony and progress in New Zealand at last began yet today, as we had shown you in the start of the video. For what reason is such a lot of area of New Zealand empty, and for what reason do everyone individuals live here in Northern Ireland? This southern piece of New Zealand in Alva Locale is totally unfilled in light of the fact that living on this whole region, or then again doing construction, is beyond difficult. There are mountain goes wherever in the southern piece of New Zealand. There are high mountains wherever in this whole region, and there is such an excess of land that in any event, building essential framework like streets and so forth is extremely difficult on this side of the mountains. This is the eastern side. The land is exceptionally dry and fruitless, because of which there is no water system and so forth. For that reason, most of New Zealand's populace lives here in Northern Ireland. To decrease this issue of populace deficiency, the new government has made a migration strategy after the Second Great War. Loosen-ups, the Second Great War. Before 1950, the passage of non-white individuals in New was thought of, and because of this, the number of inhabitants in New stayed stale till 1950. And after that, when this limitation finished, individuals from Asia, particularly China, Philippines, and India, began coming here, and the number of inhabitants in New at last, the match-required bomb began showing up. Today, The greater part of the 27% of New Zealand's populace are foreigners or individuals who were brought into the world external New Zealand. Most of settlers live here in Auckland and its encompassing regions, and this is the motivation behind why Auckland is quite possibly of the most visited city in this present reality. Since land is one of the reasonable urban areas in the rundown, the stockpile is less, and the interest for lodging is high. To take care of this issue, the new government is currently surrendering individuals to Rs 8,000 to move to Waikato, 100 kilometers from Auckland, so the tension on Auckland's real estate market is diminished. What's more, the costs ought to be standardized. An exceptionally intriguing thing is that the whole horticulture industry of New Zealand runs on sending out creature meat. Here in Northern Ireland, because of the downpours, the land is green, because of which there are endless types of goats and gays here in New Zealand. The populace is around 50 lakhs, while an expected horde. The number of inhabitants in goats here is right around 3 crores, and that is the reason New is the country that sends out the most lamb and sheep fleece on the planet. 95% of New's meat is sent out abroad, and in 2019, New procured an income of $46 billion from these products. New is the biggest economy on the planet, and the wellspring of income of this economy is horticultural commodities. 46 billion rupees are normal from the products of just gosht. This is one of those reasonable things, and this ought to be an inspiration for India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, in light of the fact that these three are essential rural nations.